What's up everyone, welcome back to another video. Today we're going to talk through my top 5 tips for giving you the best start possible in FPL. What's up everyone, welcome back to another video. So as I mentioned in the introduction, we're going to have a look through my 5 biggest tips to give you the best start you possibly can in FPL. The start of the season is so important, so if you can try and follow these 5 simple rules when picking your team and going into the opening game weeks, making transfers and everything like that, then hopefully you'll be off to a good start. Just a reminder that there'll be a new video every day until the start of the season, so make sure to like and subscribe, turning on notifications so you get that little bit of a reminder. The 5 tips that we're going to talk through today are booking in transfers, unproven players, pre-season form, nailed players, and captain fantastic to round it all off. So let's get into them, and hopefully there's something you can all learn for your opening game weeks of the season. So just a little bit of how I've put together these tips and why I've put them together. So my season rank over the past 5 seasons, I've had 3 really good seasons that I'm very happy with, 11k, 14k and 4k last season, but I've had 2 seasons, one which was okay last year and then 750k in 2017-18. So I've been able to collect a lot of learnings depending on what went well, what did I do in the seasons that I performed well in, and what did I do in the seasons that I maybe didn't perform as well as I could have. So I've tried to combine a little bit of 2 to give you the best 5 tips that I can to start the season as well as possible. First up is booking in transfer. So this, and what I mean by this is saying, okay, I've built my team for game week 1, but after game week 1, I know I'm going to sell this player and buy this player. After game week 2, I know that there's a change in fixtures, so I'm going to straight away sell this player and buy that player. So it's not something that I would advise doing straight away. So first of all, it's a no-go. The reason for this is that there are so many changing aspects at the start of the season. You may look at your team now and think, okay, it's set up so well. I know the players I've got, they performed well in the past, they're playing for good teams, they've got good fixtures, whatever, but I can guarantee that there'll be a player in your starting 11 that goes into the start of the season and does not perform as you want, and there'll be a player that you don't expect to do well that does it really well at the start of the season. So you will need all of your transfers at the start of the season. They are more precious in the opening 5-10 game weeks as they are compared to the rest of the season. So you will need them to shift around your squad. You may not see it now, as I said, but you will need those transfers as much as possible. So don't make your life harder by jumping on players. For example, Manchester City have a good fixtures game week 2. Chelsea have a great fixture in game week 1, but then it gets more difficult. And I see people with 2 or 3 Chelsea players that are going to go, oh, I'm going to sell all of them after game week 1. I can guarantee you that that is not a good way to go. Booking in transfers to go straight after game week 1 is not a good strategy, and actually saving a transfer after game week 1 going into game week 2 can give you a much better head start going into the game weeks 3 and onwards, whereas if you're having to use a transfer straight away, you're already on the back foot compared to other people. So there are so many unlikely things that will happen at the start of the season, so many of those unprecedented circumstances. Players that you've got will come out and fire, and some will be awful, and some players that you don't expect to will do really well. So don't make life harder for yourself. Give yourself the best possible chance to be able to get on board with the players that are doing well that maybe you don't expect, and sell the players that you aren't doing well. So don't book in transfers for probably the opening couple of game weeks. I can see a lot of people doing it for Aston Villa who have a very nice first 3 fixtures. Okay, 1 transfer in the first sort of 4 game weeks you can plan to do, but the other 3 transfers you will need to do to be able to get onto the bandwagons that are doing well, to sell players that haven't started as well as you want. So try not to plan too far ahead at the start of the season, and look for probably the first 6 fixtures when you're making your game week 1 team. Don't be too short-sighted on just game week 1. Next up, we have unproven players. Now, it's very easy to go with players who have come into the league. There's a lot of hype around them. So, for example, we've got Trincao at Wolves, we've got Daka going to Leicester, Varane at Manchester United now, we've got Sancho as well at Manchester United. There are talk about other players, potentially Haaland coming in at Chelsea. We saw it with Werner last year. We've seen it with players in the past that there's been a lot of hype around them. But 9 times out of 10, you are better off going with a proven FPL asset to start the season than trying to predict whether whether these players are A, going to be ready for the start of the season, B, going to go straight into the starting team or will be given more time to adapt, and C, whether they'll actually be good enough to play in the Premier League at this level. So they may have been great in their previous leagues, but it is often takes time to adapt, particularly for new signings. So choose players that we know are going to perform. You are, as I said, 9 times out of 10 more likely to get a return out of a player that's been in the league a couple of seasons, done it over a period of time, than getting brought up in all the hype for one of these new signings. So yeah, don't make life harder for yourself. It's a point that I'll reiterate throughout this video, that you want to give yourself the best chance you can to have the best start without having to make extra transfers, without picking players that you don't know how they're going to perform. So try and know what you're going to get from a player. Proven FPL assets is definitely always the way I go when picking my Game Week 1 team. The third asset builds on this a little bit, is pre-season form, and don't get too caught up in who's scoring in pre-season. It's worth having a look at who's playing well, what teams are playing well, but it is worth taking it with a little bit of a pinch of salt. To start with, you rarely see a full starting team unless it's the couple of games before the start of the season, so there's often more rotation, so you don't quite know whether the player that's scoring in pre-season is going to be the player that's starting when it comes to Game Week 1. So first of all, yes, he may be scoring goals, but will he be a starting player? These players may not have motivation. There may be a player who's not starting who really wants to get into the team but may continue to be on the bench. There may be starting players who don't have that much motivation in pre-season, but it doesn't mean when the league comes around they then won't start scoring a lot of goals as well. So there are players, for example, we've got Harry Kane, who's not back in training yet. Some of the Chelsea players as well, their pre-season form may not be that great. However, when the season starts, they'll be fully ready to go, and they may be back scoring a lot more FPL points for us than potentially a player like Dele Alli we've got there that has done quite well in pre-season. So it's worth looking at pre-season, but not quite in as much of a context as maybe last season because of that rotation and motivation aspects. And as well as this, pre-season fixtures often are against a lot of weaker opposition. So whether that's a rotated team against, Chelsea against Arsenal just happened, but there were quite a lot of rotating players in that, not first team players, or you're playing a team from a lower league. So just because a player is scoring in pre-season doesn't necessarily mean they'll score when they start playing a full Premier League side at the start of the season. It is against someone in League 1, League 2, or against a team from another league. So yeah, just bear in mind pre-season, there's a lot of other factors that continue to be a part of whether a player is doing well or not, and always look at last season's form in a comparison with the pre-season form as well. So point 4 was choosing nailed players for your team. Now, just before we do, league code just below here. There are prizes every month, so make sure you want to be in that league, but it is, of course, for subscribers only. So if you aren't subscribed, hit that subscribe button and join the league code down there for a chance to win every month. But by nailed players, I mean, don't fill your squad up with players that are rotation prone that may not be starting every week. It's okay to take a little bit of a gamble on 1, maybe 2 of these players in your starting 11. However, I see drafts that have got Greenwood, Cavani, Mahrez, Jota all in there, and it is too much of a risk for me going into the start of the season. As I said, your transfers are so precious at the start of the season. You don't want to have to be wasting on them because suddenly one of your rotation prone players is only playing 1 every 2 games, and that's not enough, and you need to be selling them. So it's okay, as I said, have 1 or 2 of these in your team, but there will be someone or something in your starting 11 that doesn't go quite to plan, and you'll need your transfers for that. So don't make life more difficult for yourself by having players in your team that won't start each and every week. I currently have Jota in my team as a little bit of a punt. So as I said, it's okay to have 1 or 2 of these players, but don't go too overboard picking a whole team full of rotation prone players. They may be great on their day. For example, Mahrez, Jota, a lot of these players are so explosive when they do get the minutes, but they don't play every week. So you've got to understand that yes, they may score 2 goals in 1 week, but if they don't play for the next 2 weeks, what's their average points over that whole amount of time? So these players can be great to have over a short period, but just think about how often they're going to play and what it fits in with the rest of your squad balance as well. Final point that we have is Captain Fantastic. Now, Captain is so key as part of the FPL game. If you are new to FPL, whether you've played it for years, I can't stress enough how important having a good captain and having a good option in your team every week is worth having. Particularly at the start of the season, there'll be certain players that are very highly captained. For example, the ones you've got on screen here, Salah, De Bruyne, Bruno Fernandes, Harry Kane, often be the players that are highly owned and come top of the captaincy rankings each and every week. I would say that the start of the season is the time not to overthink your captain. Don't try and go too differential around some of the other players. Stick to the proven players at the start of the season, because if one of those players does well and you don't go on to them, then you could be left behind, even however well the player that you're going on there. So I tend to stay with a very reliable captaincy option at the start of the season, as I do throughout the majority of the season. Let the rest of your team do the talking. Let your differentials score their points. And if your captain scores, then great, you'll still gain ground on other ones. But as I said, it's not the time to be trying to overthink and do something a little bit different. Stay with the pack early on in terms of your captaincy, and then you can look to diverge a little bit more when we have that bit more information about potentially the weaker teams or the better attacks, whose could be a good differential for you. But while we've not got that, while there's a lot of uncertainty going into the start of the season, having a reliable captaincy option like Salah and Fernandes in the opening weeks is definitely key, and I can't stress enough how important captaincy is for the start of the season. It helped me get to the rank that I did last season, so finishing 4K, a great start to the season I had, and captaincy was a massive part of that. So if you can do that, it will definitely help you get off to the best start possible, and then hopefully continue throughout the rest of the season as well. So those are 5 tips to help you get the best start possible in FPL. If you have any other pieces of advice or any questions about your teams, please drop them in the comments down below, and I'll make sure to answer them between this video and the next one. But as I said, there will be videos and live streams every single day to help you get the best start you can before the start of Game Week 1 and then throughout the rest of the season. So if you have enjoyed, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Help me grow as much as possible, as we do aim for 10,000 subscribers before the start of the season. Any feedback welcome on the graphics, on the content, anything you'd like to see improved, as I am trying to make this as best a viewer experience for you all as we can. But that is all we've got time for. I hope you have enjoyed, and I will see you all again tomorrow.